A woman has died from CBD oil, maybe. Alright, we're going to talk about it, but first I have a little experiment. So I have a little CBD oil for myself. God damn it. Okay, so I got it open. I'm going to see if I die, because she died. Oh, fuck me. Alright, so I have an idea. Ugh. Ugh. That is vile. That was so much worse. Oh, come on. Okay, so I'll let you know if I die. Let's get into this. So CBD stands for cannabidiol, and it's the second most prevalent active ingredient in cannabis besides THC. Interesting to note as well, all 50 states in the US have some sort of regulations surrounding CBD, but on the federal level, it's still scheduled alongside marijuana. So there are a lot of dubious health claims surrounding CBD, from curing anxiety and insomnia to stuff like high blood pressure and Parkinson's. The most interesting research that's been conducted is on seizure disorders, particularly Dravet syndrome and Lennox-Gastaut, which are two childhood onset seizure disorders that last through adulthood, and they're both pretty brutal. A medication called the Pidiolex, which is based off of CBD, has been approved and is being prescribed in the US to treat these seizure disorders. In numerous studies, CBD was found to prevent or reduce the amount of seizures in disorders that weren't responding to classic treatments. So this next video is kind of tough to watch, but it's actually really incredible. So this kid is having a seizure, and his dad puts some CBD oil in his mouth. He rubs it into his gums, and you can watch the seizure stop in real time. Again, it's hard to watch, but it's pretty important for this topic.
There you go, buddy. There you go.
So this isn't an isolated incident either. In a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial that is outlined in the New England Journal of Medicine, it was found that the addition of cannabidiol in the amounts of 10 milligrams and 20 milligrams per kilogram per day was found to reduce or even get rid of seizures in disorders that, again, weren't responding to traditional medicine. This was actually specifically for children and adults with Lennox-Gastaut seizure disorder. So what happened? So a 56-year-old woman showed up to the ER in her town with symptoms that looked like Steven Johnson syndrome. This was a week after taking CBD oil, and her symptoms started 2 days after taking it. You might be wondering what Steven Johnson syndrome is, and let me tell you, it's really fucked up and super gross. It usually comes about as a reaction to antibiotics or over-the-counter inflammatories. That's right, next time you're hungover, maybe skip the Advil. Don't be a pussy. So it causes the skin to develop rashes, which then blisters, which then peels off completely. Here's a picture for your viewing pleasure, because I know it's so nice to look at. It doesn't just affect skin. The same thing happens to eyes, mouths, reproductive glands, anuses.
The only cure is eating ass.
Most people with SJS are treated in the intensive burn ward units of hospitals, and about 10% die, usually from pneumonia, sepsis, shock, or multiple organ failure. Sounds nice, right? So anyways, this woman shows up to the ER with this terrible reaction. She had taken CBD to help with her chronic pain. She used an oral spray version, and the brand was Natural Native. These are a few pictures that I found that are from her actual case study. Not only are they super fucking gross, but you can really see the amount of pain that she was going through. So she was admitted to the intensive burn ward of her hospital. She was given cyclosporine. It's an immunosuppressant that's usually given to people who have just undergone some sort of organ transplant. She was also given steroids and antibiotics. But it was all for naught, as she died from her disease within a month of arriving at the hospital. So did it kill her? What's important to know is that she had taken CBD oil in the past without having any sort of reaction. But most people who get Steven Johnson's from taking Advil have taken Advil in the past as well, without any problems. So who knows? However, the case report that describes in detail what happened to her insinuates that there was probably some sort of impurity in the CBD oil that has nothing to do with CBD. So we can call this CBD oil-induced Steven Johnson syndrome, but we can't conclude that it was actually caused by the CBD, if that makes any sense. It really seems unlikely given that in a poll, 1 in 7 Americans said that they have used or regularly use CBD products, and no reaction like this has ever been seen. One thing we do know is that this stuff needs to be regulated. If this was caused by some sort of impurity, which it probably was, then that could have been completely prevented if the government hadn't scheduled it alongside fucking heroin. I mean, it's been clinically proven to help with seizure disorders. There's a medicine based off of its molecular structure that is prescribed for seizure disorders, and it has no psychoactive effect. And it's all natural, man. So Hong Kong officials have just made their largest ever seizure of shark fins. The crates arrived from Ecuador. Before we get into it, let's learn a little bit about shark fins. Shark fin soup can be traced back to Emperor Taiju. He established the soup as a sign of his wealth, his generosity, and his power. This is around the era of the Song dynasty in Japan, which spanned from the year 960 to 1279. The popularity of the soup grew during the Ming dynasty, and it can be almost 100% accredited to the admiral of the navy Zhang He. He commanded expeditionary voyages around Asia and East Africa from 1405 to 1422. Zhang would bring back the shark fins that the fishermen had left behind, and he would sell them when he got to port. By the time he died, fishermen had learned that they could sell the fins as well. And when the Qing dynasty rolled around in 1644, the soup was already an established delicacy. So how do they use it? Well, usually the cartilage in the dried fin is shredded and used as a thickening agent in shark fin soup. The price of a bowl ranges from $5 Hong Kong to $2,000 Hong Kong, which makes it viable across the entire economic spectrum. It's valued in China for its numerous health benefits. These include improving skin quality, lowering cholesterol, preventing heart disease, preventing cancer, and of course, sexual vitality. I believe it. Personally, a nice clam chowder in a sourdough bread bowl gives me a raging erection. Obviously, none of it's true, though. There's no scientific support to any of these claims. In fact, at least one study showed that not only does it not prevent cancer, but it can, if you're a guy and you eat a lot of it, it can make you sterile because of how much mercury it contains. But easily the worst part about this is how they get the fins. It's a practice aptly called finning, and it's fucking barbaric. So basically, sharks take up a lot of space, and the body isn't as valuable as the fins, which can sometimes sell for up to $500 American per pound. So more often than not, the fishermen slice off the fin and then yeet the shark into the ocean, and once it's there, it sinks to the bottom, and because it can't move, it usually suffocates, and if that doesn't happen, it bleeds to death, and if that doesn't happen, it's eaten by another predator. The cruelty is not even the worst aspect of finning. At least 100 million sharks are fished and killed each year, and sharks have a really low growth and reproductive rate, which makes them really susceptible to extinction. To date, some shark populations have declined by over 70%, and just over a quarter of shark species have gone extinct exclusively due to finning. Sharks are really important to the ecosystem. For example, the loss of the smooth hammerhead led to a massive increase of its prey, rays. The rays started eating way more of their food than they usually do, bivalves like clams and oysters, and that further fucks up the biodiversity of the ocean, not to mention it harms human fisheries as well. Alright, let's get back to Hong Kong. So officials in Hong Kong found 26 tons of illicit shark fins taken from 38,500 sharks, mostly the thresher shark and the silky shark. By the way, thresher sharks are marked as vulnerable to extinction, and silky sharks are marked only as a vulnerable species. But this is despite the fact that silky sharks are one of the most widely distributed sharks on planet Earth and were once thought to be invulnerable to depletion. So basically, this seizure is a really bad sign. China recently enacted policies to try to get rid of the illegal trade of endangered shark fins, but Hong Kong just stepped up its surveillance. So if this seizure can tell us anything, we can easily surmise that not only is the shark trade not slowing down, it's flourishing. On a happy note, the trade of illegal shark fins in Hong Kong carries a maximum sentence of 10 years in jail and a 10 million Hong Kong dollar fine. And the owner of the logistics company that the fins were sent to has been arrested. But again, this seizure just tells us that the trade is still at large. But shark fins are big business. This seizure alone was worth $1.1 million, and it would have been worth a lot more if the fins were of higher quality. If this one was just caught, think about how many are going on that aren't being tracked. And keeping policymakers and law enforcement's pockets greased means that this trade is not going anywhere anytime soon.
مقمع خلصت سنينك الاربعة يا حلوة يا بلحة يا مقمع خلصت سنينك الاربعة طولت.
Alright, I got one more for you. So Shady Habash is an Egyptian filmmaker who just died in prison after being held for 2 years without trial for making a music video. The video was made for exiled Egyptian heavy metal singer Rami Assam, and Shady died under sketchy circumstances. This is the video in question. The song's called Balaha, which translates directly to date, like the fruit, but it also means like stupid or idiot. Basically in the song, Assam is saying that Sisi's 4 years are up and it's time to get the hell out of office. Assam is famous for another protest song he wrote called Irhal, which means leave, and it was directed at then President Mubarak in 2011. And it became the anthem of Tahrir Square, which was part of the protest that eventually led to the overthrow of President Mubarak. Living in Sweden because of his exile from his home country, Assam escaped charges. But the writer of the song, Galal El-Bahari, as well as Shady, were both arrested for charges of terrorism and spreading fake news. El-Bahari was sentenced to 3 years in prison by a military court in Egypt, but Shady never got his trial. So to understand the significance of this, we have to learn a little bit about the current political situation in Egypt. In 2013, the president of Egypt was Mohamed Morsi. He was not well liked, and there were protests going on all over Egypt, centered in Cairo, for his removal. The military gave the government an ultimatum: make peace with the protesters or else. There was no resolution, and the military staged a coup, led by then Chief General Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. They arrested Mubarak as well as several Muslim Brotherhood leaders. Ali Mansour became the interim president, and el-Sisi basically became a celebrity. In 2014, he retired from the military and ran for president. He won in a landslide with 97% of the vote, and ignoring a ton of other shit that's happened, that basically brings us to now. So basically, Sisi's government is known for its massive crackdown against dissent of its citizens. Tens of thousands of Egyptians have been detained, hundreds have been killed, and more even so have gone missing after speaking out against the government. From a Western standpoint, we can say this is terrible, but there's a lot of support for Sisi in Egypt, and a lot of people believe that he's actually overall good for the country. For example, he donated half of his salary and his inheritance and his personal worth towards the Egyptian economy, the stimulation of which was one of his main pillars in revitalizing Egypt as a country. He has also made strides to curb sexual violence against women, and he's been working on what he calls the modernization of Islam, removing certain sections from religious texts that he and others believe incite or glorify hatred and violence. You can make up your own mind on Sisi, because I'm not going to do it for you, but understand that it's a lot more complex than Western media would have you believe. Okay, back to Shady. So after being arrested for terrorism, he spent over 2 years being detained without trial. This is longer than the maximum time detained without trial under Egyptian law. So recently he died, the cause allegedly being that he drank hand sanitizer thinking that it was water. I mean, come on. The details on his death are really mysterious. Alternative to the water story, which is the official story, an Egyptian publication called Egypt Today said that his cellmate said he was mixing the sanitizer with soda to get drunk. But a quick media bias fact check of this publication says that it's heavily biased towards the government and that it often puts out false information. So take that with a huge grain of salt. And keep in mind, I haven't found this report in any other sort of news source. From another source again, Shady was allegedly sick for 2 days before he received any sort of medical treatment other than prison physicians who basically said that he was fine. After, of course, his cellmates were calling for help for days because of his deteriorating condition. There's a lot going on here. There's definitely a chance that Shady was just trying to get wasted on hand sanitizer, but that doesn't change the fact that he died while illegally detained for making a music video. On the other hand, knowing what we do about Sisi's attitudes towards dissent, it's entirely possible that the government didn't want to risk Shady walking free after trial and making another piece of media that criticizes the government in a country that's fresh off of 2 revolutions and wouldn't shy away from a 3rd. There's also a chance that they just wanted to make an example of him. Once again, the choice is yours. I can't make your mind up on this, and to be honest, I can't make my own mind up on this one. It's a complex situation made even murkier by anti-Sisi Western reporting, as well as biased pro-Sisi, often government-controlled reporting coming out of Egypt. It's a tough one to figure out, but it's definitely worth thinking on. Alright, thanks again. That was episode 2, and as always, have a good night. I'll see you next time.
I be like, whoa, all these bitches sniffing on my snow. Whoa, she said my soul darker than a crow. Whoa, she gave me love and thought that shit would grow. No, she tried to change me baby, let it go. Whoa, wait, hold up, what? I need